halfway storm, and I've got a very quick question for you. How are you? How the devil art thou? I sincerely hope that you've been keeping well since the last time that I did this. And as for me, I haven't been doing bad. I can tell you that much. I haven't been doing bad. I've been a little, if that makes sense, and I'm sure that it doesn't. I'm sure that if you try spelling that word, if it's even a word, that it's going to be very difficult to do, and the dictionary won't help you on it. You know, we're in that strange part of the year where we're transitioning from summer to autumn, or as my American friends call it, the fall. I actually prefer the term the fall over autumn, but I always say autumn because obviously being here in the UK and everything. And you know, I've actually been looking forward to this time of year because it's the lead up to Halloween, right? And I like Halloween. Halloween's one of my favorite times of year. But as we've been going through this transitional period, you know, I can't say that I've been feeling great. I can't say that I've been feeling bad, but I haven't been feeling great, and I've been looking into it. And hey, look, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not trying to diagnose myself, but a lot of what I've been feeling and stuff, it sounds to be like the symptoms of seasonal adjustment disorder. So I might go talk to a doctor about that at some point. You know, like my mood's been low, my thought process hasn't been as joyful as it might be usually, and I've had like cravings for like carb heavy foods and stuff like that, which I haven't had for ages. When I've been doing the carnivore diet, I just haven't craved like sweet stuff or carbs or anything like that at all. Can't really say I've had any particular cravings for foods, and then all of a sudden just these real strong fucking cravings. And you know, my sleep pattern isn't messed up, but it's starting to get that way a little bit, which normally I don't mind too much. But like I said, you know, I haven't exactly been feeling great. And from what I've read up, it sounds like seasonal adjustment disorder. But until I get to speak to a professional about it, I really can't say for sure. But it does kind of lead me in to what I want to talk about. And this is something that I've wanted to talk about before and thought, no, it's not the right time. Maybe I should save it for later. Now feels like the right time to talk about this. And what I want to talk about is crippling self-doubt, something that a lot of creative people experience, regardless of whether their art form or preferred medium is comics or music or even stand-up fucking comedy. You know, there's many different art forms and mediums out there for creative people to explore. And it's something that we understand it more now than we ever do, but there's still not enough understanding of it. And the reason I feel like now's a good time to talk about it is because I've noticed that lately, online, especially in like the online like music communities and like metal communities, that people have started talking about it recently. There seems to be a pattern of people talking about crippling self-doubt. I think that's a really good thing. I think it's one of the most important topics that should be discussed, and I've got nothing against anyone who's discussed it, whether it be in a video, a podcast, or a blog post or whatever. All I'm going to say is I like, while I do appreciate it, I have noticed that a lot of the people who are talking about it, they're talking about it in like very short chunks, and I feel that it's a very dense topic of conversation that needs to be discussed. And it, you know, we don't really do it justice when we just do like a 5-minute video to talk about it, or a blog post that'll take you like a couple of minutes to read. You know, I mean, I appreciate it's not the most delightful of subjects to talk about, and you know, if you talk about it for too long, it might make you might walk away from it going, oh well, I don't exactly feel too happy because of it. But that's a sacrifice that we kind of have to make in order to try and understand it that little bit better and support each other, because that's one of the biggest things that I feel is missing that support for each other. And that's why I think it's good that people are starting to talk about it more, even if it's only in certain communities. And I wanted to talk about it a bit more because, you know, it's something. Look, there are some really lucky people out there who haven't experienced it, regardless of whether they're creative or not. And if they're creative and they haven't experienced it, then those people are fucking awesome, and I'm so glad that they haven't had to experience it, because I've experienced it several times firsthand, and it sucks ass. It sucks ass big time. Real big time. Let me tell you, because I'm going to be very blunt and honest here, and that's because I try to be that in everything I do, whether it be a comic, a video, a podcast, a novel, piece of music, doesn't matter. I feel that the best policy is honesty, and I really value authenticity, something that I feel we're always in demand of, but we never seem to get enough of it, and that's a real shame, because to me, authenticity is a really beautiful, beautiful thing. And I love it when I see authenticity in people. It really inspires me. I really admire it. Anyway, I had experienced crippling self-doubt a few times without realizing it. Back in the days, going back many years now, when I was in a band, when I was the front man, the vocalist of a band. We were called Abuse, and we did a lot of gigging, a lot of playing live shows. We spent a long time in the recording studio, recording not only like a 4-track like demo, very early on in our career. That was back in about 2003, but in 2004 we were in the studio for about 6 months, like recording, mixing and mastering a 10-track debut album, which was one hell of an experience. But during that time, I had felt those moments of crippling self-doubt and didn't realize it, because I'd never heard anyone talk about it. I'd never heard anyone use the term crippling self-doubt. And there's a reason why we add the qualifier of crippling to the words self-doubt, and that's because it is that powerful. It can cripple you, and it comes from within you, and that's a really hard fucking thing to deal with. The first time I recognized it was shortly after I started the path that I'm on now of being a storyteller and creating stories, whether they be through prose or comics. My main focus when I started was comics. I didn't think I was going to do anything else. Boy, was I fucking wrong. I was so fucking wrong. If anyone had told me at the beginning of my career that like I would end up like playing a small part in a movie, and that I would end up writing novels as well and doing music again and stuff like that, I would have told them that they were a fucking liar, but they would have been absolutely spot on. Anyway, when I first started doing what I do now, it was a decision I made back in 2010, shortly after my father died, after he had been going through a battle with cancer that had lasted many years. He passed away. And at the time, I was working as a manager. I'm not going to say what business or anything like that. I'd rather not. Better safe than sorry. But I was a manager of a business, and that business had just got a new regional manager, and that new regional manager showed up and just decided that they didn't like anyone in the branch that I was working at. You know, they literally took like one look at you and decided, no, you're scum. And they wanted to clear the house, bring in all new people, but they didn't have good grounds to fire us on, so they did stuff that I felt was trying to set myself and my colleagues up so that if you saw it out of context, you would think, oh, that's gross misconduct, and it wasn't. And it was just such a clusterfuck of things. This person was real. I personally felt that they were fucking nasty, and that they were doing really nasty shit to good, innocent fucking people so that they could ruin their careers and make them jobless. And they were doing this literally at the time of my father dying. You know, they were phoning me up going, hey, you need to come in for a meeting. And I was like, do you realize my fucking father died the other day? And they were like, so? And that was just enough for me to go, you know what? Here's a couple of middle fingers. Go fuck yourselves. I ain't working for you no more. I don't give a fuck. And I decided there and then, I was like, you know what? Life is way, way too short to be doing shit that isn't making you happy. So I decided I'm going to do comics. And I'd had this idea for a graphic novel brewing for fucking ages. And I was like, before I do that book, a book that I was very passionate about, I was like, I need to do something else so that I can build up a big enough audience for when I do that book. And I looked at the other stuff that I was doing and I was like, you know what the other project is that I'm really fucking passionate about? Jericho. So I started working on this comic called Jericho, which never got finished, which I think is a real shame, but I've promised myself and many other people that it will get finished. That book will get finished. Like 8 issues were published and it was a 10 issue like story arc, and there were going to be 4 story arcs. And like I said, I've promised myself and many other people I'm going to finish that fucking book one day. But in order to do that, I would have to start it again, and I've got no problem with that whatsoever. Anyway, when I made that decision to do what I do as a job now, as a fucking career, I was like, okay, I know that I'm not going to have all the time in the world to work on these issues, but I can take as much time as I want to work on this first issue, which in hindsight wasn't my best decision, but I did it anyway, and I can't change that, and I'm not ashamed of that decision. So I spent months on that first issue, and at the time I was like, I want someone else to draw it for me, but I don't have the money to pay another artist. I don't really know any other artists who I trust doing this, and I hadn't drawn in years. So I had to start like reteaching myself how to draw. And I was just like, I'm going to tell this story because like I just felt that it was adequate. Like it was inspired by many different things, but one of the inspirations behind it was my dad's struggle with cancer. So I just felt that it was perfect to go, you know, my father's death has like helped push me into this direction to finally take that fucking leap. And it just feels appropriate and adequate to do this book. So I started working on it, and during that time, my cousin, this was like shortly before Christmas that year, my cousin, who was the same age as me, she passed away from a brain tumor, and that was like a fucking kick in the gut, and it just made me go, that's even more reason why I got to do this fucking book. So I worked on that first issue. I worked my ass off on it. And it was difficult, but I kept going. I kept fucking going. And during that time, I never felt a moment of self-doubt. I felt moments of being tired and going, shit, I need to draw that again, because I was pushing myself too hard. I wasn't taking a break when I needed to take a break. So let me tell you, taking a break is just as important as the time you put into the work. And it got to the point where I'd finished drawing the pages, and like, bear in mind, back then, I didn't work digitally. I refused to work digitally. So I had hand-drawn a 28-page issue. First comic I'd ever fucking made in my life. Even when I was a kid and I loved comics, like I'd draw, but I never tried drawing what I would have called a comic. I just loved drawing characters. I never drew a story. So this was the first fucking time I'd ever drawn a comic. I learned so much from drawing that first issue. I then inked it all by hand, and then it came to like doing colors, and I had no other choice. I was like, well, I can't do the colors by hand, I'll fuck up this artwork, so I've got to do it digitally. So I got it all scanned in, and I tried to do it digitally. My coloring was fucking awful, but I still gave it a go. And then once it was all done and it was lettered and everything, I took it to the printers. And to start things off, it was just going to be like a limited edition run, just 100 copies, all hand numbered, and everything was fine until the day that the box turned up with those first 100 copies. I was so excited. I was fucking over the moon. I was like, the day is finally here. I finally get to see for the first time my hard work in print. And I bought that box inside to my home. I took it into the room that I'm in now, my home studio. And I put it on the floor. I grabbed my Stanley knife and I cut the tape on the box. I opened that box and there it was staring at me, and like something clicked in me. I don't know what the fuck it was, and I was like, okay, this is weird. This isn't what I was expecting. And then I picked up that first issue, the top copy, right? And I opened it up and I started flicking through it. And that was when I first recognized the crippling self-doubt that I was feeling. Because that was the moment where I was like, this is awesome, but it doesn't feel right because I ain't good at doing this. What the fuck am I doing? I'm a fucking fraud. What's gonna happen when people try to like buy this off of me and I give them like this book? They're gonna open it up and think that I'm a fucking fraud. They're gonna be like, I wasted my money. Why should we fucking support you and stuff? And I was like, I had that moment where I thought to myself, I've been kidding myself all this time. I've been looking at this through like rose-colored glasses and stuff. And it was a really hard thing to deal with. Feeling that was not fucking nice. And like, what didn't make it better is like, I was very lonely at that time. I felt very, very lonely. I was single as well, which, you know, didn't help and whatever. So I was like, here's this moment that's meant to be really fucking joyous for me. The only person I can really share it with is myself, and I'm not feeling too great about it. And then 4 days later, it sold out. That first issue sold out, and more copies had to be printed, had to do like a completely different cover for it. And like the very last copy of that print run, I handed myself to one of the people who has been a huge inspiration for me, and that was the author Clive Barker. I got to hand it to him in person, and he sat there and he looked through it whilst I was there and was like, you fucking did this? This is incredible. You did this all on your own? You did the story, you did the lettering, this and that. That's fucking awesome. And let me tell you, that felt fucking amazing. Hearing that from Clive Barker, that is one of my happiest fucking memories of my life. And it was fucking awesome. And I wish I knew that was coming when I was opening that box and seeing it in print for the first time. Because maybe that would have helped with the self-doubt. Who knows? And you know what? Since then, I've felt it many times again. And it never goes away. That's the awful thing about crippling self-doubt. Is you're gonna have many days in a row where you're gonna be like, hey, I'm not the greatest, and I'm not trying to trick anyone into thinking that I'm the greatest, but you know what? I'm actually surprising myself here. I feel really good about the work that I'm doing and everything, and this is fucking awesome. And you get to the end of a day's work and you look at what you've done and you're like, you know what? I'm really fucking pleased with that. I'm really fucking proud of that. I am definitely improving, and I'm going to do everything I can to improve as I continue this journey. And you'll feel that run, and you'll feel that it's fucking amazing, and that like you're kind of unstoppable at that moment. Like you've become a fucking machine who's just killing it. You're just there day after day, page after page going, yes, this may not be fucking like Alan Moore Watchmen level, but damn, I am on my fucking way to being to doing something that people are gonna love just as much. Whether they think it's just as good as not, doesn't fucking matter. I'm really fucking proud of this. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, without warning, boom, you're gonna get that day. That day where you feel that you suck. That you're like, why have I wasted so many years doing this? Why have I been lying to myself? And for some people, it doesn't stop there. For some people, we then start feeling like what's known as imposter syndrome, where like you make something like a comic, or like, you know, if you're a stand-up comedian, like you do a routine and people fucking love it. You're a musician, like you record a song or an album, you get it out there and people fucking love it. And you should be happy, right? But there's that thing inside of you that says, yeah, they're happy now, but what about when I do the next one? What's going to happen if I do the next one and like they listen to that album, or they read that book, they read that comic, or they hear that joke, and they don't react the same. They react the opposite. They're not enthusiastic about it. How long until I do that piece of work that makes them go, man, you're a fucking fraud. You had us fooled for so long with all that other stuff, but now we've seen your true colours. You're a fucking fraud. That feeling doesn't go away either. And it's very similar to the crippling self-doubt. You'll be on this run and you'll be like, yes, this is so fucking good. I'm finally doing it. Everything's clicked. Everything's at peace. Fucking awesome. Let's rock and let's fucking roll. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, boom, you're just like, oh my God, I'm a fraud. And at any moment, they are going to fucking discover me. And they're going to know that I'm a fraud. Right? I mean, fuck, I was doing a signing at a convention once, and this lovely guy came up to me and he was talking to me and he was like, I really like what you're doing and stuff. And I was like, thank you, dude. That's fucking awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And he said, I wish I could do what you do. And I turned around and said, you can. I'm nothing special. I'm just a fucking idiot with a pencil. And you know what? There was something about saying that to him that made him go, yeah, there's no reason why I can't do this. And I've seen him a couple of times since then, and he's been like, I'm doing it, man. I'm doing it. I'm writing the books that I want to write. And I'm like, dude, that's fucking awesome. And that's really cool. And I'm sure that person since then has felt the same things that we've all felt at some point. That self-doubt, that feeling of, I'm a fraud. I shouldn't be doing this. Who the fuck am I kidding? Why do I think I have the right to fucking sit down and draw a fucking comic book? Right? Who gave me permission? What makes me feel that I'm fucking worthy of doing that? It's a fucking horrible thing to feel, man. But the other problem is we feel that. And sometimes we feel that, and it, like, what's worse is when you feel that self-doubt, that bit of imposter syndrome before you start a fucking project. That is the worst, because that's when you start saying to yourself, and what makes all of this like bad, and what makes the crippling self-doubt crippling is, it's really fucking hard to explain. It probably isn't, but it feels like it is. What makes it crippling is you start listening to it and you start believing it, because you can't ignore it, because it's all coming from within. But it's also fueled by doubt you've heard from other people before, whether it's related to what you do or not. Like, you could have heard someone say you suck when you were at school on a sports day and you lost a race. Right? And that has nothing to do with your art or the medium of entertainment that you work in. But for some reason, it's there. It's fueling some of that crippling self-doubt, and you're listening to it. You're paying attention to it because you can't escape it. You can't block it out. It doesn't have a mute button. It doesn't have a volume button. It's there. It's in your ear. You cannot escape it, man. And when that happens, before you start working on a project, oh man, that's the moment where you start thinking to yourself, if I do this and it's fucking awesome, then that's amazing. But if I do this and it sucks, that's a tragedy. And because that crippling self-doubt is there, you believe that that's how it's going to go. You've got no evidence to back this up on. But that crippling self-doubt is telling you, yeah, but if you do this, it's going to suck. And if it sucks, that's a tragedy. Right? If you can relate to that whatsoever, to what I'm saying and what I've just been saying, then I hope what I'm going to say now helps you, right? And I want you to humor me just for a second, because I want to tell you this awesome fucking story, right? And I can't take credit for it. I don't know who came up with this story. I don't know whether it's true or not. I like to feel that it is, because you know what? It doesn't matter whether it is or isn't. There's a fucking important message to this. So, back in the days of Edo, Japan, during the time of the samurai, a young samurai warrior wanted to honor his retainer. He wanted to honor the people who he felt honored by, not just his retainer, but his parents, his family, everyone that he was close to that he looked at, and he worshipped the ground that they walked on. And he was trying to think of the best way that he could honor all of them, because he had honored them in battle, and he wanted to do something different to honor those who he felt honored by, especially his retainer, especially his parents. And he decided that the best way he could do this was to climb to the top of the biggest mountain that he could find. There was one that he could see from his bedroom window, and he looked at it every night before he went to sleep. And he was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm going to honor them. I'm going to climb to the top of that mountain. And then crippling self-doubt kicked in. That little voice in his head said, but what if you try and you fail? What if you start climbing that mountain and like things go smooth, but you get halfway and you fall? That's tragedy. You would have done the opposite of honoring them. You would have disrespected them. Can you risk doing that? So he put it off for so long. He kept seeing it every night going, tomorrow, I'm going to fucking climb that mountain. Then he'd wake up the next morning and be like, I can't do it, because what if I fail? What if I fucking fail? Then it's all for nothing. It would have disrespected the people that I want to honor, and I will be ashamed of myself, and they will rightfully be ashamed of me. One night, he looks at that mountain, and he's like, I don't know. I don't think I should. I think it's a fool's game to even try, because, yeah, I might get to the top, but chances are I'll get halfway, and I'll fall, and I'll fail. He goes to sleep that night. And whilst he's asleep, he starts having a dream. He dreams that he's at the bottom of that fucking mountain. And in his dream, he feels compelled to climb the mountain. So he starts climbing it. And he gets halfway. And in his dream, when he got to the halfway point that he had never seen before, because he had never climbed that mountain before, there was a ledge. And on that ledge was a wise old man, sat there patiently, meditating and drinking tea. And the old man said, I've been expecting you. Come join me for some tea. Come join me. So in his dream, he sat with the old man, and they shared tea, and they talked to each other. And the old man said, there's something troubling you. There's something on your mind. Tell me what's troubling you. Tell me what's on your mind. And in his dream, whilst he was drinking the tea with this old man, he said to the old man, I want to honor my retainer. I want to honor my teachers. I want to honor my parents and my family. And I feel that the only way I can do that is to climb this mountain. And I know this is a dream, so I'm okay with the fact that I've climbed up here. But when it comes to the real mountain, if I try and I get to the top, then that's success. But what if I fall? What if I get halfway, or even less than halfway, and I fall? That's tragedy, and that's how I see things going. And the old man listened to him, and he stroked his beard, he sipped some more tea, and then he said, whether you get to the top or not doesn't matter. The only tragedy is if you never try. And with those words, the samurai woke up, and those words stuck with him, the words of the old man in his dream, the words of, the only tragedy is if you don't try. So he put on his clothes, washed himself, normal morning routine for a samurai, and then he went to that mountain, and he climbed it, and he got all the way to the top. Just think about that. That's something I try to remember when I'm feeling crippling self-doubt, when I'm feeling that moment of imposter syndrome. I don't always succeed in remembering that tale. I'm not going to fucking lie to you, but when I do, it does make me feel better. It does inspire me a bit. So I hope that now that you've heard that tale, that if you feel that hopefully you'll remember it. And that hopefully it will inspire you and help you to get past that crippling self-doubt, to get past that imposter syndrome. But there's something else that we need to acknowledge, and we need to acknowledge right now, sometimes what we're feeling is crippling self-doubt. And that's common. That's common in creative people. Sometimes what we're feeling is imposter syndrome. Once again, that's common, especially in creative people. But sometimes what we think is crippling self-doubt or imposter syndrome, it's actually depression. And it's going unnoticed. Because now that we're starting to become aware of imposter syndrome that bit more and crippling self-doubt that bit more, sometimes it shares the same symptoms as depression, but depression is worse. And listen, I've had to deal with depression for a fucking long time, for most of my life. It's not easy, and luckily I'm now at a point where I can recognize the difference between depression and self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And let me tell you, none of them feel fucking good. None of them. But depression's one of the worst ones. Depression is that feeling you have where you can't stand to be in the same room as yourself. When you just want to be in any other room that you are not in. But you can't, because you are you. Wherever you go, there you are. And you can't get away from it. I'll be real fucking honest with you right now. There was a time where I felt horribly fucking depressed. Never felt suicidal during that time. There was no moment during that time where I didn't want to be alive. But I did wake up a couple of mornings and my first thought was, fuck, I woke up. I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to wake up. I just didn't want to feel that shit anymore. And I didn't want to waste a day feeling that shitty. But there it was. And this is the thing. Regardless of whether it's depression, imposter syndrome, or crippling self-doubt, there's that big question of, does it ever go away? And you know what? According to the people that I've talked to about it, no. Unfortunately, it doesn't. It's something that we learn to cope with that little bit better. Is there a cure to it? No, not really. That's an unfortunate thing. You know, we can only do the things that make us happy. And, you know, things like taking a walk every now and then, or each day if you can, that definitely helps. Well, at least I know it helps for me. It might not for you, but I'd recommend you give it a try. You know, listening to music that you know makes you feel fucking happy in some way, shape, or form, that fucking helps. But you know what really helps? And this is the thing that I don't actually hear people saying or talking about, and they really should. I do when people are talking about depression, but not when it comes to crippling self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And that's talking to someone. Now, that isn't always easy for some people. There are some people out there who are very creative, but they're very alone, and they feel like they're from another fucking planet. And trust me, if you're one of those people, you are definitely not alone. You know, there are still times where I question whether I was fucking adopted or not. You know, I'm not, but I still ask that question because I feel that fucking out of place in the world. And talking does help, but if you've got no one to fucking talk to, where do you turn? Well, luckily, you know, we do have the internet, but sometimes that's a bit of a double-edged sword, and I think we're all mature enough to admit that. There is another option, and I know it isn't plausible for everyone because it does cost, which is very unfortunate, but there are alternatives to it as well, and I'm sure if you explore hard enough, especially online, you'll find a brilliant free alternatives. But that alternative is going to a counsellor, going for a little bit of counselling or therapy. And I know that's fucking hard for a lot of people to take as advice, because there's still negative stigma attached to that. Well, let me kill some of that for you right now, because for a few years now, I have regularly been going to a counsellor/therapist, and I have no shame in it, because you know what? It was one of the best fucking decisions I ever fucking made. And I feel so much better for it, because it's good to have someone to talk to. Now, one of the biggest stigmas that is a negative stigma when it comes to things like counseling or therapy, is people are like, that's only for people who are fucked in the head. That's only for psychos and sociopaths and stuff. Right, next time someone says that to you, feel free to give them the middle finger from me. Okay, because I've given it to those people a few times. Because guess what? As it turns out, people who are fucked in the head and who are crazy and who are psychotic, they don't believe that they're crazy or psychotic. And they often say things like, therapy, that's just for crazy people and psychopaths and sociopaths. If you go to a therapist and a counselor, what you are saying and what you are communicating before you've even uttered a single word, just by making that appointment is, I want help. I don't want to feel this way anymore. You're admitting that you need some help. That's all it is. And then you're getting that help because you don't want to be mentally unhealthy. You don't want to feel that shit anymore. And that's a good thing. That's a healthy thing to go, you know what, I feel there's something wrong and this is a solution to it. So I'm going to explore that solution. Denying that solution, that's unhealthy. So don't fucking worry about the jackasses who fucking turn around and talk out of their asses. Next time someone gives you like negative stigma about the idea of counseling or therapy, listen to what they've got to say, nod, smile, and when it's your turn to talk, go, wow, you've really convinced me. So where did you get your PhD? Ask them that question. And when they go, what PhD? Go, oh, sorry, I thought you were a fucking medical professional. Clearly you're not, so I'm not going to listen to your fucking advice. Now, this is just my advice. You know what, no skin off my nose whether you take it or not. But if you, like I said, if you can relate to anything that I have fucking said, then just consider it. Just know that the advice is there. Like, I understand, because I've been there myself. In fact, you know what? I want to fucking open a door right now. Maybe I'll regret opening this door at a later date. I sincerely hope I don't, but you know what? I want to hear your story, Nick, right? If you want to talk about times that you have felt the stuff that I've talked about, or something similar, or if later on after hearing this, you end up having a moment where you feel that, then I want you to know that if you go to my website, okay, fwaystorm.co.uk, you go to the About section, there's like a little button that says like Contact Me or Contact Fwaystorm, something like that. If you click that, there's a contact form. Fill it out. Tell me your story, because I'm willing to listen. Okay, and sometimes when we do things like counseling and therapy, it's not because we want an answer to the solution. We just want to know that someone hears us. Okay, so by all means, do that. You can go to fwaystorm.co.uk, go to the About section. There's a button for an email contact form. Just fill it out. You don't have to use your real name if you don't want to. Just send your message. Tell me how you're feeling. Tell me how that self-doubt is making you feel. If you don't mind me talking about it on an episode of this podcast, then make sure that in the subject line you put OK to air. If not, just put my story or whatever subject line you want to put, and I'll read it. I can't guarantee that I can reply to them all, but I can guarantee to you that I will go out of my way to read every single fucking one of them. And like I said, if yours says OK to air, then I might read it on here. And if you want it to be anonymous, just sign it off as anonymous. If you want to use a pseudonym, use a fucking pseudonym. If you want to use your real name, go for it. I don't mind, but I just want you to know that option's there. If you feel that you need to talk to someone about it, I'm willing to give you some of my time to read what you've got to say. You know what? I think that's a really good place to end this episode, or at least to start wrapping it up, because you know that every episode I normally talk about what I've been reading at the end of it. And to be honest, because I've been working on a novel, I haven't read as much as I normally do. When I'm not working on a project or I'm in between projects, I read like a motherfucker. once I start working on a project, I still read, just not as much, and I tend to do like more watching. I mean, I'm a big movie fan anyway, and you know, like recently, like I rewatched a couple of movies that I haven't seen in years. I rewatched the first season of Stranger Things because I just fucking love that show. And I'll rewatch season 2 soon. I've been rewatching a show called Blackadder, which if you're in the UK as well, then chances are you know of Blackadder. I've just been rewatching that. I've been reading My Hero Academia, a really fucking cool manga. Because I finished up Assassination Classroom, both the manga and the anime. Oh wow, that was so fucking dope. That was an unreal experience. And it's amazing. Books like that, I get to the end of them and I'm like, damn, just when I think that I've learned everything about storytelling, something like this comes along and reminds me that I haven't learned everything and teaches me a little something new. That's really fucking cool. I really dig that. And you know what? I think that's how it's going to go with My Hero Academia. I'm on volume 7 at the moment. I've got it here in my hands, and it's just, oh man, such a good fucking book. It was one of those books, like when I picked up the first volume, I looked at the cover and I was like, the cover looks appealing, but it's not making me want to buy it. And I read the back and I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm the ideal target audience for this book, but fuck it, I'm going to give it a go anyway. I'm so glad that I did. I've got really hooked on it. I've only got the first 10 volumes though, so I'm going to have to try and scrape together some money to get like more of the other volumes. I don't know how many volumes there are altogether. If it's anything like the past few that I've been reading, it'd be around the 20 mark, so that's not too bad. On top of that, you know, I've just started getting this new publication. I say publication. It's the Deadpool All Killer No Filler collection. Like, here in the UK, for any of you who are not in the UK, every now and then, like a publisher will come along and go, you know what, we're gonna do a publication where every issue is a hardback graphic novel, and it will, like, yeah, it's all reprint stuff, but it's a collection, and they do like 80 issues, so every issue is a hardback graphic novel. And like this Deadpool one, like the first issue is Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. It's that whole storyline, and the first 4 issues of Deadpool Kill Illustrated, right, in this beautiful hardback graphic novel, came with a fucking awesome Deadpool poster as well. And guess what? The first issue, $2, $1.99 to be precise. Well, hell, I got hold of that, and a new issue comes out every fortnight. So the second issue came out, and that hardback book was Cable and Deadpool If Looks Could Kill. So that's right, you think about that, that's less than $10. 2 hardback graphic novels. There's 80 in the collection. Awesome spine art, so that once you've collected them all, it just reveals like this massive fucking illustration, and they're all numbered and stuff, which is dope. And like, they do this thing inside where it's like, if you subscribe to this, then like, you know, we'll give you a free issue, and you know, we'll give you some like other stuff along the way. Like I said, that first issue, $2. Second issue, $6.99. Right? After that, each issue is $10. Well, fuck me, for $10? Yeah, I think that's worth it. So I've been collecting that. Haven't had a chance to read the first 2 yet. But I will. I'll get there eventually. But anyway, I'm gonna stop rabbiting on, and I'm gonna wind this down. Look, it's been fucking awesome doing this. I always enjoy doing this. I'm not gonna lie to you, this hasn't been the easiest topic for me to talk about, but I'm glad that I've talked about it, and I sincerely hope that it's helped you, or anyone that you know. If you know someone who feels this, who feels like the stuff that I've been talking about, please feel free to share this with them. I've really got no issue with that. But you know what, before I go, I'm gonna tell you just another quick story. And this is a true story. This is something that I went through. I once appeared at a charity event, and it was mostly like a music thing, but I was there to like promote my books and all that, and it was to raise money for charity for like the homeless and stuff like that. And oh man, I can't even remember the name of it. I think it was called something like Ripple Aid or something like that. And it's really cool. It's like organized by like a bunch of local rappers and stuff. So it was very hip hop orientated. Anyway, in between rappers and dancers and people coming on stage and performing, people be asked to go up and just like give a quick talk. And I got asked, and I didn't realize that I was meant to be like going up there and saying something inspirational kind of thing. So I had to kind of like fly by the seat of my pants and just say something on the spot. So I got up on this stage in front of these people, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do something. I want to demonstrate something for you guys. And I pulled out my wallet and I pulled out like $10. And I said, right, can you all see what I'm holding up in my money? And I just pointed to a couple of random people and I was like, can you please say in the microphone like what I've got in my hand? They were like, you got $10. And it's like, that's right. And I showed like the audience, I put the $10 into the palm of my hand, and I closed my hand into a tight fist and said, you all saw me put $10 in there. Keep your eye on my hand whilst I tell you this. And they all looked at it and I said, right, if you're an artist of any type, whether it be drawing, writing, comedy, dancing, rap, whatever, put your hand up. And I picked a random person who'd put their hand up and I said, right, I don't know you. And chances are you don't actually know me. But the important thing is, I don't know you, I don't know what your art is, and you don't need to tell me. But I'm going to tell you this. Do it. Don't let anyone stop you from doing it if you love it that much and you feel that passionate about it. No matter what hurdles are thrown at you, find a way over them and keep doing it. Because whatever it is that you do, I want to see it when it's done. If you do stand-up comedy, I want to be in line to see your stand-up set. If your art is dancing, then I want to see you dance. If your art is making music, then I want to hear that fucking record. I want to hear that song. Because only you have your voice, and it's important that we hear your voice. Doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. What matters is whether it's you or not, whether it's honest, whether it's true, and I want to hear that. And this person smiled. And I gave it a few seconds and I said, right, who can tell me how much money I've got in my hand? And everyone was like, you've still got $10. And I opened my hand and showed that I still had $10. And I said, yeah, and do you know why I've still got $10? Because it costs nothing to encourage an artist. And that's the point where kind of like the ball dropped. The people went, oh, that's what he was getting to. And I was like, look, it costs you nothing to encourage an artist. And I meant what I said to this guy. I don't know what it is that you do, but I want to see you fucking do it. Because you know what? It's interesting hearing people's voices. Imagine that movie that changed your life. Imagine that song that when you were feeling your lowest, lifted you up. Imagine whether it was you or someone you knew. There was a moment where you felt like taking your own life, but something stopped you. A piece of art, whether it was a line from a movie, a page from a comic book, a line in a novel, a song. Imagine how different things would have been if the person who created that thing that you needed the most when you were at your worst. Imagine what would have happened if the person that created that thing never created it because no one encouraged them. Because all they heard was people going, you suck. Why? Why bother? You're probably not even that good. Look at you. You're fucking talentless. These people who don't know told them that. Or even worse. What if they didn't do it because they bought into their crippling self-doubt just that little bit too much? Their imposter syndrome just that little bit too much? Their depression just that little bit too much? How different would things be? Because let me tell you, if that had happened, then that meant that discouraging an artist cost you everything. But encouraging an artist costs you nothing. So don't be afraid to encourage an artist, especially if that artist is you. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope this has helped you and other people out. And like I said, my door is open. The contact form is on my website. If you want to, please feel free to fill it out. Just remember, if you're okay with me talking about it on an episode, put okay to air. Because if you don't, I won't air it I won't talk about it on an episode of my podcast. Anyway, That's it for now. I'll be back soon, well, in a couple of weeks or so with another episode. I've really enjoyed doing this. Can't wait to do it again. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And most importantly, peace and fucking believe.